Underrated. Definition: not rated or valued highly enough. I've always used this word to associate the things I review on this channel, particularly stuff I've experienced as a kid. I like looking at underrated stuff because whenever I cover these things, it always gives them free publicity, and I like to see if whether they're as good as I remember and see if they hold up well to their test of time. I'm also not afraid to take a look at a few modern stuff, and while some modern stuff I've looked at is pretty underrated with a dedicated fanbase, there's one game I found on Steam that nobody has ever heard of. One of the most unknown games on Steam with only 45 reviews as of the writing of this video, a very, very little game called Speed Brawl. Speed Brawl is a 2D combat racer published and developed by Double Stallion Games, a boutique development studio located in Canada with a pretty interesting resume, making 2 licensed games based on shows like The Loud House and OKKO, as well as 2 originals being Speed Brawl and Big Action Mega Fight, and are currently developing the League of Legends spin-off game, Convergence. You see, just like you, I had never heard of Speed Brawl nor Double Stallion in general until I saw the announcement of Convergence at the 2019 Game Awards. I saw footage of Speed Brawl on Double Stallion's website and I thought it looked pretty meh, but once I got it using some Steam cards I got for Christmas, this game just blew me away. I am jealous of how underrated this game is. I should also mention that I am a fan of fast-paced action games. Games like Hulk Ultimate Destruction, Devil May Cry 3, and Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance are some of my favorite action games out there. I like a game that gives me an insane rush of adrenaline that makes me go out of control like a rabid dog, and Speed Brawl perfectly scratches that itch of insanity. Steam is home to a variety of indie games, that's a common fact, but if you were to venture off the main path of big boys, you'll find either a bunch of indie games that look like they were made for a quick buck, or a rabbit hole of nefarious hentai jerk-off games. Speed Brawl is a diamond in the rough when it comes to Steam games. It looks like it could have had the same big success as a game like Hades, yet here it sits on Steam with about 45 reviews, many of which are positive mind you, gaining 20,000 downloads according to SteamSpy.com, and no fanbase or cult following at all, as far as I know. This game didn't even have RTX support until a recent update. The only time the game got any publicity was when it first came out, when YouTubers were doing sponsorships for it, and immediately after it faded into the shadow of obscurity. Today, I'm going to do Speed Brawl a favor and give this game free publicity and the overall sitch on what you're missing out. So the question is, why is nobody playing Speed Brawl? Should you pick up and play? And most importantly, is it truly a hidden gem on Steam? If you like what I'm doing, feel free to subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified of when I upload new content. Now rev up those fryers because I am sure excited to tell you that this is Speed Brawl. So Speed Brawl has lore. I am just as surprised as you are. It's basic and straightforward all honestly, and it leaves much to be desired, only expand on via the loading tips and the codex, and the story is mainly told through expositional text chats that are honestly pretty forgettable, and they don't have any voice acting. It has the potential to be expanded on if they did more with it, like a video web series or comic books, but alas. From what I have gathered, the game takes place in a highly advanced version of London following an event called the Lunar War, in which an army led by one Hugo Wells and his friend Jack Townsend have traveled to the moon and conquered a species of space bugs called the Selenites. After the downfall of the Queen, London has advanced its technology, Hugo has become the ruler and now holds the sport of Speed Brawl to satiate destruction among the middle class. When starting a new save, the game opens up 3 years ago in an unknown location with heroes Abigail and Red fighting their way through speedy brawling to reach Hugo. Hugo asks Abigail to join him, much to his disappointment. Cut to a badass intro of the game and we cut to the present day in the year 1888 in the dirty outskirts of London in the training of up-and-coming speed brawlers Ebba and Bea. With the help of Bea's former trainer Red, it's up to Ebba and Bea to work their way to the top and win the legendary leagues of Speed Brawl, all while speeding and brawling and recruiting new brawlers along the way. So the story of Speed Brawl is one where the characters work their way to the top of some grand tourney to win either a grand privilege or a grand prize, and the story is often told via expositional text box chats between the characters and sometimes expands bits of the universe's lore. Speaking of lore, there really isn't much we know about the world of Speed Brawl, aside from the aforementioned lore bits in the loading screens and the codex, yet from what little there is, it sets a pretty strong reason for the events of Speed Brawl to happen, even if it's all expositionally explained. So the lore is pretty paper thin, brushed aside without more going for it, and leaves much to be answered. Like, we don't really learn how London was able to advance its technology and build a literal W-shaped base on the moon, or what else was going on around the world. Have any other country like China, Africa, or the United States advanced just as much as London? I feel like this game's origins could work in a comic series or hell, an animated web show, but I'll stick with the cards I'm given. Basically, the story doesn't matter, and if it doesn't sell you on the game, then maybe the presentation will. Speed Brawl's presentation is one of the factors that made me pick up the game. 2D animation mixed with fast-paced beat-em-up action is a dream recipe for fun, and Speed Brawl perfectly encapsulates that recipe. The animation in Speed Brawl is really good and the highlight of the game's visuals. It's fluid, on point, and the art style takes on an anime-looking, steampunk-looking cartoony art style straight out of a Dark Horse or IDW comic book. The devs on Twitter told me that they took inspiration from 80s action shows like Thundercats and Silverhawks, as well as Dragon Ball and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which was an inspiration for the game's color palette, but the best I can compare the game to visually would be Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or the series Black Dynamite. Couple that with a theme song intro, which was done by the guys at Titmouse, and this could very well be a Saturday morning cartoon in the form of a video game. The art style also has a great use of color, like the backgrounds, which I think look a little flat even without the crowds, but it uses a lot of yellows and blues and pinks, these very bright and vivid colors that make them all pop, especially the industrial levels, which have this red pinkish neon undertone that truly makes it stand out. The ones that stick out to me the most visually are the sewers and the Guinea League. The moving comic-y cutscenes that are infrequent in the game are also nicely drawn, and the character designs, just by looking at them, I think it's no wonder why Riot Forge hired these guys to make Convergence, especially the Cell Knights, which all give off a League of Legends vibe. I should mention that I like the imaginary billboards they place throughout these levels. There's even an in-universe billboard advertising Double Stallion. Clever. The one thing that kinda doesn't stand out to me is the writing, since it's mostly made up of expositional text chats that I often read, so the writing I will say is nothing special, but for what it's worth, it does the job done. I just kinda wish there was voice acting in these cutscenes. The music is also nice. It was all composed by Vibe Avenue, a music group that has composed music for games like Omen Sight, Children of the Zodiarcs, Ultimate Chicken Horse, Blood Roots, and Double Stallion's previous game Big Action Mega Fight. The music is pretty forgettable, honestly, but it's all composed of futuristic fast rock and roll music, and it does the job well of fitting in with the game's fast action and gives you the adrenaline to kick some steampunk ass. The music also uses a motif that sounds eerily similar to the McDonald's jingle. Take a listen. I'm pretty sure this motif isn't exclusive to McDonald's, but it's so eerily similar that I just had to point it out. Otherwise, the tracks are nice, and some of my favorites include the Sixpence League, the Florin League, the Crown League, the Boss Theme, and my favorite track in the game, the glorious Guinea League. So the music works, if unmemorable, and the voice acting is fine. Unfortunately, Speed Brawl is one of those games that doesn't have a lot of voice acting, aside from a few quips shouted out by the characters in-game and during expositional text chats, so I'm basically left reading out what the characters say all to myself in my own voices. But I think my favorite out of all of them is Cassie. So overall, Speed Brawl is stronger on the animation side as it is on the auditory side. The animation is well animated and on point and makes great use of vivid color, the writing is lacking, and the music packs a punch, if a tad forgettable. I should also mention that Speed Brawl does not have any difficulty settings, so now the only thing left to sell you for this event is the gameplay. Speed Brawl, according to Double Styling themselves, plays as a fast-paced combat racer, like Sonic the Hedgehog meets Streets of Rage. For me personally, I would describe this as the Speedrunner Super Smash Bros. I am jealous of how fun this game is. Right at the start, I want to talk about the controls. If you did play the game, you could tell how the devs put a lot of effort into the controls. If there's one thing I love about action games, it's the rush of adrenaline you get while in combat. I want a game that gets the blood pumping while also feel like I am in control, and Speed Brawl does a great job with this ideology. The movement is fluid and tight, and the combat is satisfyingly fun, visceral, and it feels connected as you mangle from one enemy to the other. You have one main attack button as well as a dash via the shoulder button, a dodge via another shoulder button, your super move, and your ultra move, both of which vary from character to character. You can hold down your attack buttons to unleash a good attack, and you can also cause debuffs to your enemies depending on items. You can also parry enemy attacks to stun them. The one thing I think kinda sucks is the lack of attack and combo variety, since there are no other moves aside from your basic 1 and your power moves. You can perform combos by mashing the attack button, though there aren't any other attacks you can use. But the combat overall is satisfying, tight as hell, and makes you feel in control even when you're rapidly pressing buttons and going out of control. And I think that's the key to good game design in an action game. Tight controls that work well even when you're the one out of control. You can also mash the button up and down to either launch enemies in the air or punt them into the ground. The combat is arguably the best part of the game. Like I said, it feels connected and satisfying as you mash enemies left to right. You can also switch between different fighters. You can also hold the dash button at the beginning of a stage to get a quick boost. But you have to time it correctly, otherwise if you don't, womp womp. The game also has effects which hinder your characters and the enemies, and they can range from poison, burns, and confusion, which is a nightmare as it reverses your controls. One of the things I think that sucks as well is the fall speed of the enemies, which slows the game's speed to a crawl. Though maybe it's the aforementioned rush of adrenaline, and sometimes the level design is a hindrance to the fast pace, with a few small corridors and ceilings that actively look misleading, especially when you're on a tight deadline to reach the end, and the characters fall pretty slowly on walls. Each level of the game is designed around the fast punchy action of the game, and they're all solid with some small flaws like the corridors and the wall slipping. Each level has the same goal: to reach the end under a fast time limit, and depending on how fast you are, you will earn a medal, with the highest being platinum and the lowest being stone. The levels also have hazards like spikes and flame traps. These levels include the straightforward reach to the end levels where you face up to 10 battles of enemies, rage, where you fill a rage meter to progress. This is the easiest of the types of levels to win at, and the ones where I got the platinums the most. Pole races, which are exactly what they sound like, and the ones I had trouble with the most, though maybe I don't have enough skill to complete most of them with gold medals. Break the targets, which is exactly what it sounds like. Damage levels, where you fight a wave of enemies in order to reach your damage level, and boss rush, of which there was only one in the game. These levels also have replay value to encourage you to get better medals, which I think is pretty good. At the end of these stages, you will get rewards depending on how long you complete them. These can range from items, new characters, character skins, and increases to your fame, which is basically your XP in this game. You can level up to unlock upgrades to your power moves and health. The items you get can be equipped and all have various benefits and buffs, as well as charms, which provide benefits as well as unbenefits, like one can have fast air regeneration and slow ground regeneration, and much more. You can also purchase items from the shop, which also sell skins. If you notice by now, I am wearing skins. Some of these characters have A to B costumes, and all of them have different colorings, some of which are references to other properties. You can equip these before starting a match. You also unlock more levels in the leagues the more you play the game. You also unlock the codex in the extras menu, which doesn't serve a purpose other than giving you info about the characters, the items, the world, and the enemies, as well as what you need to know about the gameplay. There are a total of 6 playable characters in Speed Brawl, 4 of which you need to unlock as you make your way through the campaign: Ebba, Bea, Cassie, Johnson, Carl, and Automaton. I always pick Cassie and Automaton because they're my favorites. In fact, Cassie just might be my favorite character in the entire game. She's my favorite not just because of her personality, but also because she's the most agile out of the group, and every time I beat the shit out of people with her ultimate, or just in general, it's good fun. She can also surf on her cricket bat by pressing down the attack button, which I didn't even figure out until the end of the game. Automaton is also my favorite because he's the best heavy champ and has a good super move. Each of these characters can be upgraded, have equipment which offers various benefits, and they all have color palettes and costumes which you can get in either the shop or you'll unlock them by doing the levels, and they all come with their own super moves and power moves. Ebba has Venom Spike, which is a straightforward air dash, Bia has Knuckle Bomb, a punchy spin, Cassie has Spinning Strike, in which she spins, and if upgraded, she can bounce off walls. Johnson has Hammer Down, which smashes the ground and unleashes a shockwave. Carl has Belladonna, in which he fires poisonous roses. This one does jack shit, honestly. And Automaton has Repulsor Beam, which is basically a laser beam. The power moves are chargeable attacks and are the equivalent of a Final Smash. Eva has Final Fury, which she strikes multiple enemies. Bia has Cyclone Thunder, which is a larger knuckle bomb. Cassie has Rolling Thunder, which is simultaneously one of the best and one of the worst power moves in the game. The best in that she spins around the battlefield and attacks any enemies around her, and the worst in that when this happens, you lose practically all control of her. Quite fitting actually. So her special move is a gamble and it all depends on the design of the levels for it to work. When it works, it's a hell of a lot of fun, but when it fails, you're basically screwed because you're on a tight schedule. Johnson has Meteor Bomb, which is exactly what you think it is. Carl has Belladonna Symphony, which just might be the worst power move in the game. It basically does jack shit as he shoots an array of poisonous roses. It's no wonder why I don't play Carl. Finally, Automaton has Deep Core Cannon, which shoots a bigger laser, which is also my favorite in that it does a lot of damage despite its low height range. Most of these characters are well designed. Ebba is your fun basic character, and Bia is a fun heavyweight, but everybody else except for Cassie and Automaton are pretty hit and miss, and I end up not using Johnson and Carl. Your enemies in this game are actually two factions: the Selenites and the Army of Hugo. The Selenites are League of Legends void-looking ass insects that come in about 12 units. Rippers, Carrion Rippers, Screamers, Carrion Screamers, Crushers, Vernomites, Bursters, Slithers, Gormites, Ramhorns, Cleavers, and Devourers. Each of these all come in variants that give different spell effects, like poison and fire. Rippers are your straightforward slasher enemies that hop around and slash at you. Carrion Rippers, meanwhile, carry egg pods that hatch into little rippers. Screamers are flying enemies that shoot projectiles and sting you. The Carrion Screamers are similar, except they shoot out smaller flying screamers. Crushers fly around and attempt to crush you. Vernomites shoot projectiles, but they also teleport around the arena. Bursters walk around the battlefield and explode. There's also a variant that shoots 4 lasers. There are also these egg pots throughout the arena that, unless destroyed, will keep spawning minions. Slithers are these little worms that attach to you and suck your blood. Gormites are floor bugs with spikes on them. Ramhorns are rhino beetle looking bugs that charge at you and will slash at you with their horns. Cleavers are giant crab enemies that hit you with their claws. And the Devourers are gigantic enemies that act as bosses throughout the game. They have powerful roars, large claws, can shoot lasers, and can jump around the arena, causing debris to fall and for them to get stunned. The minions of Hugo, meanwhile, come in about 5 units: Corporals, Lieutenants, Captains, Batomatons, and Batomaton turrets. Corporals wield spears that try to stab you and block you. They come in variants that also can throw grenades of many types, from stun grenades, confusion grenades, and healing grenades that heal enemies. Lieutenants provide more of a challenge as they attack with a ball and chain weapon, and summon ally Selenites via portals. Captains are big, fat, ultra-large enemies that hit with a large club and buff nearby enemies. Batomatons play like Automaton himself. They'll run around the arena and fight you, and there's one variant that does the repulsor beam. And finally, Batomaton turrets go around the arena and fire their big laser beams at you. Much of these enemies provide a fun challenge, and the hardest out of all of them are the Corporals that throw confusion grenades. For the bosses, they are honestly kind of a mixed bag. There are a total of 13 bosses in Speed Brawl, a lot of which comprise mainly of reskins of bosses you fought before with small extra spices like buffs, which honestly makes fighting them kinda repetitive. The first boss is Big Nelly. He's pretty straightforward as he will charge at you and slash at you with his horn. Next is Lieutenants Benny and Crusher, who are basically powerful versions of the Lieutenant enemies. Third is Carl Ambrose. Carl will jump around the arena and bash at you, as well as do his Belladonna attack. Following them is the Crown Flamehorn. It's basically just Big Nelly but fiery, except there's floor traps and the Flamehorn applies fire debuffs. After that is the Devourers. The Devourers are actually the best bosses in the game as they have a lot more going for them and are actually challenging and fun. The Devourer will roar, breathe a big laser beam, slash at you, teleport around the arena, and jump up and down, which will actually stun them for a short time and have debris fall from the ceiling. The Crown Devourer, though, is more fire-based. Then is Captain Combustion. He's basically a powerful version of the Captain. Following him is the Florin Devourer's cousin. He's basically the same as the original Florin Devourer. After that is Batamaton Prime, a very powerful Batamaton with very powerful attacks. Finally, we have what I like to call the Guinea League Guardians. Groups of bosses in the final league comprised of Snorty and Grunty McSnortface, 2 large Selenite Rippers, Brimstone and Triacle, a pair of powerful Vernomites, and Faith, Hope, and Charity, comprised of a powerful Captain, Corporal, and Lieutenant. These guys are pretty basic. Speed Brawl also comes with multiplayer, where you can challenge another player using your characters. Yeah, like hell anybody even plays this game. I couldn't find a single player to play multiplayer with me, so I just gave up after 5 minutes. So overall, while Speed Brawl is lacking in its combo variety, it's an incredibly fun beat-em-up with tight and fast controls, replay value, level variety, and overall it's a fun and simple game that gets the blood pumping. Let's end this race by crossing over to the finale. So about midway through the game, after going through countless leagues and facing vile foes, our heroes make their way to the Florin League and take down the toughest of challenges they have never seen, much to the dismay of Faina Kalashnikov and Hugo Wells, who as it turns out is Ebba's father all along. Oh shit! Yeah, definitely didn't see that coming. As our heroes play through the league, they meet up with the General and a relic from the Lunar War, a robot named Automaton. As you play through the game and unlock this character, you discover that Automaton isn't just a robot, but a man in a robot suit. Yeah, I never knew this when I first played this game, so hey, that subverted my expectations. After fighting their way through the fiery furnaces of the Crown League, our heroes impress Hugo to the point that he invites them to the highest league imaginable, the Guinea League, located in his palace on the moon. Everyone is there. Willy, Stepan and Faina Kalashnikov, and a new character named Ina Verdun who just fucks off, never to be seen again after one cutscene. Unless she shows up in a sequel, which, did I even tell you about this game's sales? So after all that, our heroes approach their final challenge. The final boss is against the Guinea Devourer Omega Prime, the most powerful out of all the Devourers in the game, and it's actually solid. This guy comes with your standard Devourer attacks like jumping and laser breath, except lasers will shoot on the screen and lightning bombs will spawn and chase you. The fight against this Devourer is probably the best and most challenging of the Devourer fights, for as disappointing of a final bout as it is. So after dealing the final blow, our heroes meet up with Hugo Wells, to which he tries to convince Ebba to join him and fight for the world. Ebba walks up to him and knocks him out with a powerful jab. However, his golden nose piece falls off and a creepy parasite comes out and crawls away. Turns out it was controlling him and is likely the explanation behind his green hair. Suddenly, a self-destruct sequence activates and our heroes escape, with Hugo on their shoulders. And so, the moon base explodes, and our heroes live happily ever after. The end. As far as I can tell, there's no reward for beating Speed Brawl 100%. I beat the game past 100% even with barely any platinum trophies, and here's proof. I even asked Double Stallion on Twitter if there's a 100% reward, and unfortunately they said no. Speed Brawl is an underrated modern gem. Is it an amazing title? No, obviously. But it's certainly a good game with its tight and fast controls, colorful art style, and good level variety in spite of its lack of combat variety, weak lore, and fun yet forgettable soundtrack. Now, do I expect this game to take off? No, obviously. I'm not expecting this game to get a sudden surge in popularity like Hades or Among Us, but maybe someday in the future this game might go down as a cult classic like, say, Psychonauts. Right now, as of the writing of this video, Double Stallion has no plans of developing a sequel to Speed Brawl, as they seem to set their sights on developing Convergence, a League of Legends story, which I can't wait to play. What I would like to see in a hypothetical Speed Brawl 2 would be to keep the tight controls, add platforming puzzles, more combat variety with combos and power moves like say Guacamelee, and more playable characters like Stepan and Faina Kalashnikov. Though judging by the description of Convergence on their website and looking at their history, it's safe for me to say that Convergence might be the hypothetical Speed Brawl 2, just without the timer and more influences from Prince of Persia. Do I recommend Speed Brawl? Yes. You can get the game pretty much everywhere you look. PC, Xbox One, PS4, Nintendo Switch. Hell, the game is even free on the Epic Game Store as I speak. Go wild. I will officially award Speed Brawl a 7 out of 10. Seriously, go play it.